Welcome into the winner's circle where we relive some of the iconic moments of the 2023 disc golf season with the players who made them happen. And today we are joined here by Corey Ellis. Corey, I stood behind you pretty much the entire week as you took down the European Open, and I'm feeling the goosebumps already. It's been months since this has happened. I guess I want to check in with you now. It's the off season. You took down a major title in 2023. How's life looking for you right now?
It's great, man. I'm just enjoying the time off now. Played a couple smaller A tiers and was lucky enough to come out with the victory and just enjoying the off season while I can at home.
Going into 2023, were you planning on going to Europe the entire time? Was that something kind of on your bucket list ever since you started playing disc golf? What did the planning process look like?
It was definitely on the bucket list ever since they've had coverage of it. That I can remember 2013, I want to say,
Hmm.
maybe before that even. But I remember just thinking how crazy it was watching those videos with my dad and being like, God, these people get to go and just play disc golf in another country. It was just so mind-boggling then, and to make it a reality is insane. And I did plan on going to European Open. I just wasn't sure if it was gonna be able to happen, just because life and bills and things come about, and up to the point in Portland Open, I hadn't had a great finish uh, for the season yet, and that finish there actually is what helped me be able to afford the trip. And we got really lucky with the price of the tickets, just right around DDO. We looked, and it was only like a grand a piece for a round trip ticket, and we just jumped on it.
I remember seeing you in the parking lot of the Beast and kind of checking in with you. I didn't even realize that you were going to be there, and you instantly said, first time in Europe, first time seeing the course. And the tournament was starting, I believe, in 2 days or something like that. Can you talk about the week traveling there and then getting prepared for the event, how you felt?
It was definitely hectic. I remember being with Molly and um, our first time going out of the country at all together. She's never barely been anywhere until this year around the country, let alone to leave it. And I remember when we landed, our phones weren't on roaming, and we could not figure out what was going on, and had no service, and just kind of in panic mode, because we're in a different country, can't figure out where we're going, our phones aren't working, what do we do? And once we got that figured out, it was smooth sailing for the most part. And we actually went to Estonia the first day we got there, and stayed in Airbnb and went to Old Town in Tallinn. And shout out to Seth Muncie for that was a moment we'll never forget. Spending that next day there and seeing all that history and architecture, incredible. And then get to get to the course, and I remember walking up to hole one and just having chills because it was surreal. Like I'm finally here playing this event. I've watched it for so many years, and I've made it a reality. It was just surreal.
Well, you played some great golf. Clearly, we're about to watch the final round kind of play out for you. As you played this course and you started playing European style disc golf for the first time in competition, what were you learning about the course as the rounds went by?
Well, I think with all the, hectic of traveling and all that stuff getting there, I kind of just was able to take in the course and enjoy each
Hmm.
hole for what it was. And it doesn't it's not, I don't really think it's that much different than anything I've ever played before, but it's just uh, the atmosphere, really, more so than the course itself. Just the camaraderie of everyone and the spectators, especially, even the people who weren't spectators that were just walking by in the park. They will stotch, and they'll tell you good shot or anything like that. And I feel like that usually just doesn't happen in the U.S.
Mhm. Well, speaking of the atmosphere, the air was very thick with tension, it felt like, during that final day. Let's actually kick it to the action of you on hole number one. I mean, you had played some great golf. You're stepping into a final round of a major knowing that you had a shot. You're playing with the best players in the world, and with Anthony Barella being one of the hottest players as of late. I mean, you're going up against Calvin. I mean, what were you feeling going into this final day?
I was feeling like people were forgetting that I was in contention for the win because I felt like uh, I was told, like, by parents and some people that had been watching the live coverage, that uh, they really didn't. You guys didn't quite mention me as much as some of the other players, but rightfully so, with Eagle making a huge charge that I'm sure we'll see.
Well, and again, the other big narrative is, what was Calvin going to get his major title? I mean, that was one of the things I felt like when me and Perkins were analyzing things, was like trying to zoom in on like his mental state and how he was feeling going into the final day, and it's got to feel pretty good for you, going into the final day, knowing that maybe the spotlight was on somebody else.
Yeah, I would say that's true. It just kind of seemed like the pieces were falling, and I just had to take the step in front of everyone else.
In hole one, we're watching AB going with a putter, kind of a neutral putter. You step up with a zone, and you throw a much more overstable disc than just a straight putter. Talk about hole number one. Is it tricky, or is it more straightforward than it appears?
It's a lot more downhill than you think it is, especially near the end. So so I just try to throw it with just a slight touch of anhyzer and let's fade. And the nerves were definitely there. And I've said this before, uh, but this tournament is the only place I've ever gotten chills on hole one besides USCGC. And you can tell
Pull
I
this
just
one.
pulled that shot a little bit there just from the nerves.
Did you have feeling in your hands at that point when you were stepping up to hole one?
Uh, yeah, it was definitely just like I said, there's a lot of nerves and sweaty palms. So I'm trying to re-grip and just try to get my grip right, and you can actually kind of see how downhill it is, but when you're there in person and then you have a basket, you don't want to go too far because about 25, 30 feet past it, maybe not even that, it slopes even more dramatically right behind it.
Nice easy tap in par going to the next hole. I mean, the front nine seems to play just completely different from the back nine. And what's interesting about this course is, on camera, it seems like it's this disc golf mecca, kind of this really epic course, but it's a championship course built into a town. I mean, you're immersed right in the middle of the town when you're playing this course.
Yeah, I mean, you have to walk through the town literally to get to from different parts of the park, and it's really unique to that. I've never really played anywhere that was like that.
Couple of good birdies. You're grabbing the par going into the second hole here. After all the years that you had spent watching coverage of this course, were you able to just visualize the shots before you even got to Europe? Did you kind of know what your game plan was going to be before you even got there?
Oh, definitely to an extent, like I assumed that I was going to throw a forehand here, and I wasn't sure about hole one because you can't. There's a lot of the slopes and hill and elevation changes that you can't tell just on the stability of the disc that you're going to throw, but you get a general idea for sure.
When you step up to two's tee pad, you see just this wall of people all down the left side. And disc golf in the States has something like that, but I feel like this is one of those iconic pictures. Just seeing this sea of people, did it give you any excited feelings stepping up to that tee pad?
Uh, Not really, just because you kind of zone out at this point. You know, you forget that there's so many people there, even though that you can clearly see them. It's just you kind of forget about them. And I was really happy with this shot here with that forehand because the previous two rounds I threw it like 60 feet into the dirt, and every time I threw like a second shot and got up and down for par. So I was just happy to get it in, like actually in the air for once on that one.
It's a tough forehand too because I feel like a lot of players will try to get the distance on it and they'll pull it left and it'll bleed OB long as well. It's kind of hard to throw the hyzer line and commit to it without getting it too far sawed off to the right. But yeah, it's a great forehand to get, and now you're stepping up to a windy 40-footer.
Yeah, the wind was definitely blowing here, and kind of dead center on that one. I felt like it was a good putt and should have stuck there.
I feel like people forget that this happened to you so early in the round. That's as perfect as it can get. Is it? Was it a situation where you had to fend off some negative emotion to kind of stay focused?
Oh, absolutely. You have to know that you threw a good putt, and Schwebby always tells me, make the basket spit you out. Don't change your stroke, just keep putting, and hopefully they'll stay in. And that was a lot tougher than people realize because I was just putting into a straight headwind,
Mm-hmm.
and he's on a knee straddling to his right, with now that same tailwind coming back, and if you just don't get the nose up just right, it'll do exactly what it did and not be able to get above the rim.
Yeah, early on, I felt nerves coming from everybody on this card. I mean, I could feel it in the fans. I was feeling the tension. I mean, there were so many players that had an opportunity to win this, and now you have to throw a 500-foot control shot.
This was a really tough uh, drive to get just right. You had to really trust the stability of your disc and just to hope that you put it on the right angle. Try to do everything you can because the wind would swirl too. Because we at this point we would have a tailwind, but it would be a crosswind a lot of times, and I think that's what happened to AB there. It kind of got crosswinded and just pushed right OB.
It's so touchy. What are you thinking here? What are you throwing on this shot?
I am throwing one of my Tour Series forces that's I'd been throwing for quite a while at that time, but it was still pretty overstable.
Yeah, you even got the stable finish. Actually, being on the left side is just fine on this hole.
Absolutely. I mean, a little closer than you want right there, but once you throw that shot, you're just praying that he holds up that green flag. And uh, people don't know also that the spotter on this one wasn't official, so whatever he called you, you couldn't argue it. That was it.
And that's not common, actually. I think that's a misconception a lot of newer players have is that the spotter always has total control. The spotter can just offer up their observation.
Yeah, absolutely. Most of the times that is the case. It's in special circumstances that they. I believe there was a Mando at Worlds that that's also an official, and you couldn't argue his call.
What do you think about that in general? In a hypothetical world where all spotters had final say, is that a scary thing or is that something that you would enjoy?
I think it depends on the spotter because if the person has
True.
plenty of experience and knowledge, and they may not be in the best area to give you the right spot, just
True.
based on the hole.
And you just smashed this drive up to the left side. Was that
And I just caught
frustrating
that
hitting
limb
that
right there.
canopy?
Yeah, I liked that one out of my hand, but I was like, you know what, it's in bounds. Whatever. Yeah.
Did you ever think of just throwing a power hyzer to try to crash the trees up in the canopy, or was going low always the option?
For me, going low because I didn't trust the ground play because the basket sits on that slope, and if it hits the backside of that hill, it could easily just roll out of bounds. Or
Yeah,
you
you're
could
right.
clip
That
one of those branches in and then roll out of bounds or something
yes.
funky.
Yeah, at this point, you're not trying to give any chance for bad luck here.
Yeah, I think the most unlucky disc golfer that's out there, but you know, sometimes luck is in everybody's favor, and I just try to take the luck factor out of it.
Even this putt right here on the elevated pin with the wind, this is not a gimme. Every putt seems to need
No, yeah,
so much focus.
that was definitely a tester, even though it was, you know, what, 18 feet away. But when you're putting in that elevated basket with that headwind and it's on a hill, you know, that could easily become a 35 footer now with a tailwind looking at the OB right behind the basket. So you definitely pressure to make those.
Now we step up to hole 4, and this is just an iconic hole on this course. A screamer forehand seems to be the option, especially if you have the hyzer flip.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a forehand shot. Roller works really well too if you can lay it down the right way.
Yes.
Um,
You can get farther down the fairway with the roller, but if you can do exactly what you just did, why not?
yeah, I was really happy with that drive. That was the best I'd thrown that shot in practice or anything the whole time.
And this is really the only weird thing that can happen to you on this hole if you're going forehand. I mean, you can hit early, but you can hit that weird slope, and there's a pretty good chance you are rolling like Kyle.
Oh, absolutely. AB
AB
gets
going a little
skinny
bit.
through the.
Yeah, he went like more overstable on that forehand. I feel like the hyzer flip gives you a little tighter line. Still worked.
Yeah, I just like to throw a high speed neutral force and you know just let it stand up on its own rather than try to force a slower speed overstable disc through there.
And Calvin bleeding down to the left side. He's not really looked crisp through 4 holes. Are you thinking about anything that he's doing right now? Like, who has the target on their back in your eyes at this point?
I'm only really trying to pay attention to what I'm doing and what Calvin's doing. Um, Calvin was in that exact same spot the day before and absolutely parked that shot. So I completely thought he was going to park it again. Um, Again, you expect AB, you know, to get up and down right there, but those guardian trees are definitely in the way there.
Especially that
And
early
I
one on the
remember
left side.
I remember this one just got away from me here just a little early, just not quite enough pop, and I wasn't really happy with that shot.
How far are you from that lie? Are you within circle 2?
Where my zone landed,
Yes.
I think I'm just outside the circle.
Kyle throws a dime. Calvin,
Just pitching
another
up.
par. A lot of these holes don't let you get hyper aggressive, especially with these sloped greens and whatnot. I've seen so many just terrible rollaways. And AB also not looking super crisp at this point. Can you ever tell if he's feeling especially nervous?
Not if he's nervous. No, I can tell when he's frustrated, but I think that's pretty much anybody.
Yes. Yeah. How hard of a bid was this putt? Did you actually give it a full run, or was it a little timid?
No, I had to just lay it up because I couldn't really get the pop I wanted to
Mhm.
on that one. There were some limbs and stuff in my swing when I went down.
And right now, Kyle does not look bad. Kyle looked pretty solid for most of the day. Birdie for
Yeah,
Kyle,
Kyle
par for
played great
Calvin.
that round.
I mean, he's been popping off for years. I mean, he kind of had an up and down year. Actually, let's jump back. Ezra Aderhold on 6.
That's
I
such a good
absolutely
shot.
love this shot.
That hole is a lot harder than I thought it would be, actually. I thought I was just going to be able to throw a buzz nice and smooth and get it up there, and I think it's 350 feet or something like that, or at least it plays that far. I mean, but you got to put it through that tunnel, and it's tight.
And at this point, Ezra is in first place by 1. He's 4 down. You guys have some catching up to do, but I'm sure you guys aren't even checking scores at this point.
No, I told Molly not to let me know what the scores were until we were after I threw the tee shot on hole 16 or 15.
Kyle just with an awful rollaway going. He goes driver, which on this hole I've seen too many rollaways to do that. Is that a zone that you're flicking on this?
That is a soft zone because I don't want that roll away. I just want it to stick right where it hits.
I think AB's doing something similar, or is that a driver that he's throwing?
No, he's throwing a zone as well, just a Z zone, I think.
Yeah, I feel like at 328, that's kind of stretching the distance, but it's not going to have that crazy skip and roll like Kyle's did. He went big chop forehand. That's another solid shot.
Yeah, this one's pretty good ways downhill too, and I think just for me anyway, throwing a zone hard, I know I should be able to throw it close to 300 feet, and circle I am. If not, just make the putt anyway.
Kyle from 60 down the hill. Both drivers just did not get as close as the zones, but you actually got a little ground play.
Yeah, but that one felt great out of my hand. It was just the basket was just a little bit below me, and I just putted it like a normal putt instead of adjusting.
Calvin
Calvin
corrects.
makes a good birdie there.
And right
AB showing me
now,
how to do it.
yeah, I mean, right now everyone's so tight at the top. I mean, going into this final day, me and Perkins were having a field day speculating on who was going to take this down because there were so many players going for their first major at this course.
Here's AB throwing a buzz here, and it's just perfect, pretty much.
That particular buzz he's been throwing pretty much all season long, and he's got the flip point perfect. It's the exact shape that the hole needs, too.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to know your disc, man, especially when you're throwing these hyzer flips like this. Calvin
Yeah,
throws it perfect with his eagle.
that's pretty much the one he throws on every shot, so there's something to that. Was that a slip? Did Kyle slip in that tee pad?
I think he did slip just a little bit. Some of the tee pads were just a little sloped at the end, just a little bit. And paying attention to your footing, I think, is crucial on especially turf tee pads because they can
Mm-hmm.
be a little bumps and dips here and there.
And I remember this one so vividly. I was standing right behind the basket. Is that an Undertaker you're throwing?
Yeah, that's the Undertaker that Barham gave me a few years ago. I've been throwing that one for a while. It always comes out on wooded courses like MVP, and I figured I'd put it in the bag for this course, and it's just an old faithful.
Calvin grabs the birdie. I want to ask, though, you threw a 9 speed here, and AB threw a buzz. And you guys, a relatively similar distance, and especially in regards to speed and flipping up a mid range. Why did you go with such a faster disc?
I just wanted to kind of smooth the disc, let the disc glide on its own rather than try to power a buzz through there. And
Hmm.
in practice, I was throwing a buzz through there until the very last day of practice. I just kind of smoothed an Undertaker and threw a really similar shot to that, and that made my decision right there.
Well, yeah, let's take a look at it again. I really love the line. I mean, you committed to it perfectly. That's a really understable driver.
Yeah, it's beat in. It's been thrown for a while, so just giving it the right amount of hyzer and trusting it is all I tried to do.
AB stepping up to 7. This is a tricky tee shot. Talk about it.
This hole, I think you really just want to throw as straight as you can. So whatever your furthest flying straight disc is, and I believe I was throwing a Zeus here and just trusting it, kind of like the same shot I just threw on the last hole, just a little bit more firm. And
Now,
if you go left on this, okay, so I'm throwing my force. I was throwing on the sidearms, and
is
it
there
got a
some
little
wind up
turn there.
there?
See, yeah, you can see there's some dust blowing that's going to left to right, and definitely pushed me over. I think that's why I stabled up to a force there, because I was throwing Zeus earlier in the week.
Yeah, you watched initial two guys go off to that terrible right side ditch.
Yeah, you really just want to get your disc to finish left if you can,
Oh,
just
look
like
at this.
Kyle's
This is
doing here.
pretty.
That's primo right there.
What I love about this hole is there is an intentional power hyzer flip uphill that's drawn out for you, but then the second shot, once you get up there, is never guaranteed, and you can't really rehearse it because there's so many little gaps that you have to choose from. I love the kind of balance between the power and the finesse there.
Absolutely, and there's a huge drop off right by the basket too, so you got to really be touchy coming into that green.
Not terrible from AB. I mean, to be in the right side ditch, that's tough. So that's a pretty solid shot. And this is where Macbeth steps up to the bag for AB. Are you thinking anything at this point? Like, oh crap, he's got extra intel from somebody. I gotta watch out.
No, I went up to Paul, I think right before I threw that shot and asked him if he was okay because I heard he dropped out, and I was not thinking of it. I was in extra trouble because Paul was
Hmm.
helping AB out.
Yeah, it sounded like he was practicing a very specific shot after one of his rounds and hurt the shoulder. I'm looking forward to seeing him again this year. It kind of felt weird not having him at the rest of the events.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's always fun to play with Paul and again because you got to play really good to be.
Couple of touchy layups. And this is a possibility for a run. He can go high right side if he wants to. And still, middle. That's a tough putt.
Yeah, that was absolutely a tough putt going through the branches and with that left to right there too. And Kyle hits a great putt there outside the circle. Uh, I was gonna get one there, and I should have known better with how Kyle putts.
I mean, he has that perfect left to right wind. He can just kind of throw it up there and let it get shoved down. Yeah, that's a beautiful stroke.
Perfect.
And you're going downhill with that crosswind. How do you feel about it?
Uh, just trying to make sure I get it high enough, and I'm not gonna lie, I was pissed after that shot because
Mhm.
I had already missed, the spit out, and then two holes before that, I missed that short one, and right then I'm talking to myself, in my head, and I'm saying no more. You've let this happen enough. That's it. You're not doing. I was fed up, basically.
And now up ahead to 9. Aderhold tied for first. He's got a sneaky good forehand, too. This is a really great shot.
Yeah, that was a great shot. You just want
And
to try and get in the circle on this one because it can get away from you.
I mean, you see the wind just starting to really pick up, and especially with how tense this round is. Like, of course the wind is going to pick up to this point to make everything even more chaotic. But then this, just gorgeous putt here from Eagle. Doesn't even look like there is wind when he's putting.
No, he makes it look easy.
Now up to 8. This is one of the easiest holes in the course, I'd have to say. You just have to get it to stick on the hill.
Yeah, definitely one of the easier ones. The miss I seen from people was just throwing it too low and hitting those hay bales. That
Hmm.
seemed to be how people were messing up on this one.
How
For
much are you
me,
thinking
aiming.
of?
Go ahead, Brian.
Well, I think you're answering my question. How much are you thinking about the landing when you're throwing the shot?
Not really the landing, just where I'm aiming. Uh, I'm trying to push it more straight and then just throw a zone, and the disc is gonna fade to the left. As long as you don't throw it really hard, you should be just fine because it's uphill. It's hard to go long if you're throwing at a slower speed. Calvin just catches the branches there, just barely pushes it too straight, and you see him hit those hay bales.
And at this point, this is the guy everyone's talking about. I mean, people are thinking he's just going to go unconscious and shoot, 12, 13 under to finish out the tournament. But, still quite a few more players to pay attention to. But then we're watching Calvin just very clearly struggle. So we're starting to think, okay, is he dropping off already? Like, who else do we have to pay attention to now?
That was a huge putt from AB there, and I was just right in front of him, and I was like, all right, well, he just showed you how to make it.
And no
And
more, like you said.
after those couple of misses earlier, that one felt really good. Felt like a confidence booster.
Yeah, the stroke looked really intentional. And Kyle is just continuing to look really solid. You're creeping into tie for fourth place now. You're just 2 strokes off the lead. At this point, do you know where you're kind of sitting right now? Have you checked scores at all? Have you heard people talk about them? Because that's sometimes a thing too. Like, you might not be looking, but you could hear other people chattering about it.
Not at all. I don't think anybody on the card that at least as far as I knew was checking scores. I'm sure Kyle was. I feel like Kyle is always checking scores.
Hmm.
But I remember the walk to this hole. You have to kind of walk down the street and through the town a little bit, and just seeing all the spectators and uh, realizing how fast the front nine goes. As I think about it now, it just seems like it goes way faster than the back nine.
It's almost all par threes. I mean, you can cook through this front nine in less than an hour. And this is really beautiful play too, especially with the wind kind of trying to shove you left. Now you have a little bit of a tailwind. That's got to feel good.
Yeah, there's a couple of trees there. I was telling him there's a headwind that just kind of helped me get it to drift to the right more. But those trees there are right in the way. If you barely throw that disc too straight, you kind of got to get lucky through those trees, and that's what happened to me. I just kind of filtered through them and got the skip. And
Calvin
I
gets
was
caught up
shocked
early.
when Calvin got cut up early on this one. His sidearms gotten so good, I just fully expected it to be parked.
Still, a solid par. And this is some momentum right here.
Yeah, I feel like uh, hole 8 and 9, you really want to get those two birdies. You're losing strokes on the field if you don't get both of those.
Well, especially going into the back nine, 10, 11, 12. These are all just really challenging shots. You know you might get a bad kick and take a bogey on one of them. This is great insurance going into the back for sure.
Absolutely.
Now up ahead to 10, McMahon.
This is such a tough upshot, man. If you barely get it too high, it'll just filter up high left and go out of bounds. If you pull it just a little bit right, or your disc goes just isn't the right stability, it'll just go straight and go out of bounds, and now you're way back and you have no chance. And
Yeah,
these are good upshots here, especially
I mean,
that.
perfect.
That's perfect.
And what I love about this section of the course too is you kind of walk out from the green of 9, and the whole world opens up because of a bulk of the spectators are just hanging out in that area watching people come through. The wind starts to get a little bit stronger because there's less blocking it. Talk about 11. Talk about the shot from Eagle.
That looks like it's a little wide, but if you throw it wide enough, you can do that right there and just go around all the trees. And I did that play one of the rounds. I can't remember which one. Just because there was no way my disc I knew was going to get left enough, so I just had to throw it straight. And
And
if you barely
Ezra's
flip it just like that, now you're in a world of trouble because now you're way back and you still have to throw through the out of bounds to get up and down.
we're seeing just so many distance drivers flipping over. It's such an unpredictable course, and Kyle just bleeds that one right, and now he's in trouble.
I remember playing the previous round with Calvin, and we talked about this tee shot, and we throw really similar shots a lot of the time. Uh, and we both said that we were going to try and drive it into the ground, so that our disc never has the opportunity to go left out of bounds. And you can see how low I threw it there. This nice driven shot.
And you got way down there, too. That's a great shot. I mean, you can throw a low bullet, hyzer, get the skip.
I was curious here if Kyle was going to go for that from there because it was so windy and tough, and I think he made a smart decision to lay up.
Big spike hyzer from AB. What do you think about the hay
Perfect.
bales there blocking the rollaway? Is it too forgiving?
No, I like it because it's you're throwing that hyzer and it's just kind of most of the time when you're throwing onto a slope like that, you got to get lucky to not roll away.
Solid shot there. Do you remember when Chandler Kramer had that big showing the year prior? Do you remember the forehand flip roller that he threw on this shot?
Yeah,
Did
that
you ever
was
see that?
insanely impressive to throw a shot like that. Uh, es- Especially if he did it in any kind of winds like we had this round.
And looking back to your putt, again, just another confident stroke. I think it's an envious skill to be able to say, no, I'm going to start putting confident and to actually do it when it matters. I mean, it looks like you completely flipped a switch.
Well, I I don't know. It's just kind of it just happens with experience. I think
Mhm.
it's nothing that you can go out and practice and learn to do just from repetition. You have to have that and be in the situation under pressure to hone that.
And I feel like Eagle is one of those players, and AB is starting to get himself that experience under pressure. I mean, for a long time, people said, AB is talented, but he'll never win a big one. And now it seems like he's starting to get in contention, week in and week out. And I love to see it.
Oh, AB's gonna win several big ones. I mean, he's still pretty young, and dude, he is so good.
And speaking of that,
I
he
remember, I remember the night before, Thomas Gilbert and I were staying together, and he said that he thought that this hole was going to come down to during the final round of whoever birdies it or bogeys it. It's going to. He thinks that it'll be a two-stroke swing, and it could determine the tournament.
Well, look what happened. AB goes OB, and you throw just an absolute dime of a shot. Kyle getting a full S, also red. Are you starting to feel relieved? Seeing the players you need to chase down go out of bounds on this one.
Uh, I mean, yeah. I'm not sure. I don't know what the scores are, but I know, it's close. Obviously, it's easy to tell it's close. I thought AB was going to can that putt when he stepped up to it because he had a more of an open lane here than Kyle did.
And just like that, you're 10 feet away, just outside the bullseye, maybe 12 feet. And these guys are putting for bogey. And that's a
Yeah,
double
just
for Kyle.
yeah, it happens fast on that hole, man. If you go be early right and your disc never comes back, like I said, you gotta work your way through that little OB section on the right, short of the basket, and then there's also OB left if you hyzer too soon. So separator for sure, but I definitely think there's some luck involved on that tee shot.
Is Can you explain that a little bit more? Because this is a hole that gets talked about all the time as we watch Eagle throw the big roller on 12. Is there an optimal line on hole 11?
There's two bushes there, and they're kind of offset, and then there's a smaller one. And if you can hyzer right over between those and over top of that one, there's a gap there, and I think that's the gap that mine hit, and that's the gap you're trying to hit. It's just you still have to get lucky to do that.
And now you step up to 12. Eagle throws a beautiful roller. You almost throw a perfect roller, and it gets a terrible redirect. How is
Yeah,
that lie?
out of my hand, I was so happy with that shot because I knew I hit the angle I wanted and everything. So I had no idea where my disc went. I thought I was going to be way up to the right and have relatively routine up and down. Um, so when I got up there, they were like, "Yeah, you're down over the hill," and I was like, "How did that happen?" And looking back now, I hit that tree and it just redirected me horribly, and it was rough in there. I could barely stand and swing my arm, so I just kind of had to pitch out the best I could.
And Eagles starting to catch fire. I mean, look at this leaderboard. I mean, all the way down to even, Calvin and even Bradley Williams in eighth place, like has an opportunity. Two-stroke swings can happen on any of these back nine holes. AB now, first place as of now.
AB pretty lucky shot right there because he threw it straight into that limb, and I fully expected it to just go nowhere, and it just made it all the way up to the basket, and I was like, I don't know how that happened. And then he told me he threw a venom there, and I was like, oh well, high speed disc.
Yeah, he threw it pretty much as
Yeah,
hard as he could. Yeah.
I couldn't really swing forward, so I just had to chop it out.
And a par is totally fine on this. I mean, obviously, you know that you're in the hunt, and birdies are prime real estate up
Yeah,
here, but
that was actually a attempt to throw it in. That's why I threw my really beaten putter to try and hyzer flip it in the basket.
oh, you were going for that one.
Yeah.
And Eagle just continuing to play good golf. I mean, now there's a three-way tie for first. Oh, Kyle. And I mean, this is a good par for you. And Kyle seemed to have the fire early, but 11 really just seemed to take the wind out of his sails. And now AB a short look for Bird. And this to me was the blunder of the round. I mean, we talk about 16. This was just almost inexcusable.
Yeah, he doesn't ever miss those putts, and with the I think maybe the little branches just kind of got in his head a bit more you than him, just flopping the putt. Wow, that was a
And
huge putt. I never saw that. That was huge. That's like a
and
60, 70 footer up the hill there.
It was 70. It was every bit of 70 feet. I was standing right there, and I didn't think he had any chance of making that, and it was just perfect right out of the hand. So now we look at the leaderboard. Everyone is playing good. I mean, Kyle's dipped a little bit, Calvin's dipped a little bit, but even they have a chance to win. And now we step up to this really challenging tee shot on 13, and you just, I mean, that's East Coast style disc golf right there.
Yeah, dude, I was pumped when I threw that shot. I remember as soon as I threw it and it came out of, and I saw it was going through there, I just turned around and said, "Yeah," and knew I was gonna have an opportunity for birdie, because that tee shot it can go bad quickly.
Because you went backhand. That's like way more technical of a shot than these forehands they're throwing. This is kind of what it's shaped up for. Why are you throwing backhand here?
Just that's what I'm comfortable with, hitting a gap like that.
Well, clearly paid off. Look how far up there you are. This is ridiculous. But then,
So this shot, I was actually frustrated with that shot because I threw my soft zone and thought I grip locked it a little, but I didn't quite turn it as much as I thought, and it just kind of faded at the end. And I feel like I got kind of lucky there because it hyzer just in time to stay in the circle.
and these guys are all throwing just great shots. I mean, the real challenge in this hole is not the tee shot, or is not the second shot. The tee shot is pretty much the only challenge here. And AB puts
And
himself to a similar spot.
that's just a brutal roll away. I mean, he threw it. It's perfect.
I mean,
But when you putt like AB, it doesn't matter. And I remember standing to the side with you, and when he made that, I turned around and looked at you and said, "You got to be kidding me."
yeah, exactly. And then Kyle drains this putt. I mean, this has got to be exciting for you. This has just got to be the style of disc golf that makes you feel alive.
Oh yeah, I mean at this point, I just feel like I have to birdie every single hole, and just to even have a shot
Mm-hmm.
at the win.
And then this is just the long walk going into the final stretch of the course. You play the longest or one of the longest par threes, and then 15, 16, 17, 18. Talk to me about 15. This is just such a tough hole.
This is a really tricky hole to figure out. Um, there is a big hyzer option that I feel like if you have the power, it's the shot, but with the how
Mm-hmm.
swirly it was really tricky. This is actually
And
my favorite hole on already. Just it's just so pretty and it's so satisfying when you get that flip right. And I tried to throw my Undertaker there and just threw it with a touch too much hyzer, and it never got to flip.
and then perfect shot from AB. I thought you were maybe 2 feet of height away from getting that flip back to the basket.
Yeah, and then I remember coming home and my dad talking to me about this hole, and he's like, "Why didn't you just throw a sidearm? Those guys parked it with a sidearm."
When you have both shots, right? It's kind of whatever feels comfortable that day, right?
Yeah, exactly. I practiced a backhand and I was sticking to it. I tried to make that too. That was a run. It was just a long way.
I mean, it's a pretty safe run. I mean, you can throw it a little high and float it. It's not too much danger behind the basket. But things get really tense after this hole. Birdie from Kyle,
Yeah,
birdie
we
from
have a little
AB.
bit we have a little bit of a walk going across the road and up the hill, and I just remember sitting here knowing you have to birdie. There's you have to throw this shot, and this was a pretty strong left to right on the shot. When AB threw this shot, he was just gonna get slammed, and it never got slammed. It just stayed
Unreal.
perfect and almost aced it.
That shot blew me away so much. I couldn't believe that just the guts to throw that in these conditions.
Yeah, just with that wind, dude, I didn't trust it. And then this is another great shot, dude.
I mean, you guys are
And
starting to
that's
catch
that's what
fire.
that was my plan the whole time throwing that shot, was throwing it low on a hyzer at the bush on the right and let it just hyzer right in front of it.
And you're going stable fairway, correct?
Yeah, this is an Athena that's really stable for an Athena.
Perfect. I know right when you threw that, you turned around and you were fired up because I know that you knew that you threw it perfect.
Yeah, I remember um, watching back, and they were worried about it, and I remember knowing it was perfect out of my hand just because of how hard I threw it.
Another windy, elevated putt. Nailed it.
So right here, I walk back to my bag, and for the first time, uh, for the tournament, besides after a round, we looked at the scores to see where it was, because I
Were you
knew at this
surprised?
point you had to know where you were, and well, I mean, I knew it was close. I just didn't know how close.
When you saw
But
the
I
scores, did your emotions change at all? Did you get more nervous, less nervous?
remember, probably more nervous, I would say, but you just try to breathe and relax yourself the best you can, control your heart rate. And I remember we were walking across, because you come across on the other side there,
Hmm.
and Eagle and threw their upshots and got on the green, and I was like, okay, well, just gotta. There's no laying up today. That's all I thought, and because I had been laying up just to get a
Really?
easy. Yeah, just because it takes some of the stress out of it. Uh, it's still, you have to commit and to that second or and third shot. But AB throws his I think he was throwing a venom. Yeah, he was throwing a venom here, and I saw he put it pretty close to that OB, and I remember stepping up and thinking, all right, you got to put it closer than him, because you got to put the pressure on him to get it in bounds.
I love the challenge on this whole, especially off the tee, being play chicken with the out of bounds. How close can you get to the OB rope?
Right.
And this
That
is
was
great.
actually a venom that AB gave me that I threw on that tee shot.
How recently?
Like right before we left for Europe, actually.
And this looks like a routine forehand for him.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised he didn't throw a backhand there, but I think the camera angle, you kind of see that there's a limb kind of in his way,
Hmm.
and I feel like he just kind of rushed this shot here.
If we're looking back and you were in his shoes, what would your second option be after going out of bounds from there?
Uh, Again, Calvin and I talked about a game plan, and we both said no matter what, if you throw it out of bounds when you're going for the green one time, then you lay up
Oh, wow.
to limit yourself to
And he
try
keeps
to
going
keep this from
driver.
happening. Yeah, he kind of is really juicing him. He's hyped. And now at this point he just wants to get it on there. So it's easy to do, man. Barely overthrow that.
And I mean, he finally goes down, at some point to a zone. And I believe that the approach disc is what he gets on the island. I feel like when the
This
adrenaline is
was
flowing through you,
this was so hard to watch, man. I wasn't ever once thinking like, oh yeah, oh, yeah, keep throwing bad shots. AB is a good friend of mine, and I just want to see everybody do the best, because I want to beat someone when they're at their best. You know what I mean? And
exactly.
he finally decides to throw a zone here, and you could see Molly and I checking the scores to see where everybody else was. And what you didn't see was Kyle threw right before him, he was the first to throw and stuck it with a backhand, and I think that really helped me have the confidence to throw this shot. And this
And
is
you're going,
one of those Brian Earhart zones.
my man, my man. I mean, this is it. This is the moment right here.
Oh man, I was so pumped after that. I mean, you'll see me high five Molly.
Oh
And
my
there
God.
was just there were so many times people came up to me and was like, "How's your wife's hand?" It was just she
Well,
finally recovered. I can tell you that.
I gotta say, that was one of the most committed shots I feel like you threw all around. You hung that so far out of bounds, like over OB the entire way before it swung back. It's just such a perfect shot.
Yeah, you just had to. There was a little bit of a crosswind, and I just had to trust that the disc had this to fight it. I remember walking up to that putt and thinking, "This is the furthest 12-footer I've ever had in my life."
It looked like you willed that into the basket, like your whole body just shoved that thing in there.
Yeah, and at this point, um, it was like when I wasn't on the tee pad or wasn't throwing, it was like I was in autopilot. It was like somebody else had control of my body. Like I wasn't. I was just so focused. It just seemed like I don't know how to explain it.
It's interesting though when a player wins, and we're watching just a blunder here on 17 for Eagle. It seems like they all say the same thing. Like when Bradley Williams won uh, Preserve, he was like, it felt like somebody was just dragging me through the round. Let's zoom in on this shot on 17, though, Corey. I think this is my favorite one you threw all day.
Yeah, that shot, man, just practiced it every single day in the field before the round, and I never threw a different shot. I remember I was so pumped when I threw that one too. Um, it just had the right amount of flip at the right time, and uh, I remember background, and right when it started to flip, you heard him yell "Tiger Woods" in the back, and then afterwards we went and played a practice round somewhere, and he goes, "You're throwing Tiger Woods here, right?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Your Buzz, Tiger Woods." So that Buzz is
Oh
now
man.
nicknamed Tiger Woods forever.
I mean, it was one of the best shots I've seen you throw all week. And it's exactly the type of shot that this hole is designed for with the backhand. The challenge with the forehand is sawing it off early and right, like AB just did, which he's out of bounds now. He's automatically taking a four.
Kyle hit a really good putt there. I mean, as a 27 footer, looking with all that pressure. And I remember thinking, just go through your routine. Don't rush anything.
You were moving real slow. It felt like you got fired up after the tee shot, and then everything kind of slowed down for you moving into that final hole.
I remember the walk to that putt. I was just looking down, and it was kind of like I was floating to the thing. I don't physically remember walking or anything. It was just like I appeared up by the basket.
And then we look down on 18. All of the gallery is finally surrounding the fairway. Yeah, there's really not even words sometimes to describe the energy that you feel out here at this tournament. You're going, I believe you're going zone on this.
Yeah, this was another zone. Just throwing a little flex shot to stay in the fairway the whole flight.
Yeah, you just need to advance the fairway as far as you can. You don't want to make any foolish decision. This was just flawless.
I checked the scores again, and Paul looked at me and said, a par wins.
Kyle going way more aggressive over the right side. He has to birdie.
Yeah, he has to birdie to have a chance.
And this is an okay spot.
Yeah, he
It's
got
an
pretty
opportunity.
friendly to get away from that tree that he hit there, because you could easily get stuck in there, and then you have a really tough upshot. And this is a huge shot. I mean, this is a 600-foot amount of power, if not more, to throw this shot.
Yeah, I can't believe it. Still, if you've
It
played this
was it
hole,
was
you
seriously
realize,
unbelievable.
and it's not just
I mean,
execution.
he was only what, less than 100 feet off the tee, out of bounds.
Talk about this shot. You're just trying to chip a hyzer. Is it the hardest chip hyzer that you've ever thrown?
Uh, Probably. Yeah, I would say it is, because I just went to standstill. I made sure to know the distance. It was about 230 feet. I was trying to throw it. And again, trusted the same zone I threw on 16 on the upshot,
Talk about this
because
walk.
I just wanted. Yeah, we walked up and I stood directly behind Kyle's shot so that I could see his line and what he was gonna do.
I mean,
And he throws it perfect.
hats off to Kyle. I mean, he's been playing great all year. It's great that he ended up getting the major this year. It felt really sweet for him to grab USDGC at the end of the year. I mean, so much young talent, and he's been around since he was, 17 years old. But now here you are. You've been playing since you were a little kid. Final approach.
Yeah, it's been a long time, and I remember just telling myself it wasn't over. I hadn't celebrated anything yet. Not until that moment right there. I knew, I'd finally done it. And there's Kyle giving me a hug, and he told me afterwards. He said that he wasn't going to win, he wanted whoever was going to win for it to change their life, and that really meant a lot. And he was really genuinely happy for me. It was Kyle's a great guy, and there you are, Brian, standing right there with me.
I mean, we watched Calvin hit a great putt here for par. He kind of dropped off, unfortunately. But Corey, I got to say, man, me and you have played a lot of disc golf together, and we've talked disc golf, we've talked life. Being on the road, committing your whole life to this game is not glitz and glam. It's a commitment to a passion that you have, and it's not guaranteed to make a living at this game. And it's been incredible to watch you grow as an athlete and as a person. And everybody wants to see someone's life change when something like this happens. But it's cool to know that you've been going at this since you were a kid, and finally getting this opportunity the first time that you came out here. Just amazing stuff, dude.
Thanks, Brian. It's been, and is continuing to be, a hell of a ride, and I look forward to more moments just like this.
I mean, you did
I
it.
just I'll never have another feeling like that. I think even if I win a world championship or a USDGC, that might be the only other one, because that holds a special place in my heart too.
Yeah, I don't know.
And
It's bizarre. Go ahead.
UC had to come and take that trophy from me, because I wasn't leaving there without it, and he told me it had to stay, and I was like, oh man, you know. But I remember just looking at the names right here on the, and seeing all those names like Climo and Paul's on there, and Eagle and Jasper Lungmark, and just all those, like, history, man. I'm a part of history forever. It's incredible.
And you just have so many people in your corner, so many good people. I mean, you got Paul caddy for AB all day, but he knows how far you've come. He knows how much work you've put in, and then Molly right here. I mean, she's been through it all with you, man.
it was a moment I'll never forget in my life. That's for sure.
How are you feeling right now watching it back?
Definitely some emotions come back, and I'm so glad that I was able to bring her with me. And look at that crowd, man! All those people. It was just a feeling it's hard to grasp. Hard to put into words.
Talk about the aftermath. First off, talk about the aftermath that day with all of the Finnish and European fans, and then talk about the aftermath of your life, whether it's career wise or just personal, personal growth. Talk about all of that.
I remember staying as long as I possibly could to sign whoever wanted me to sign anything for all the fans there because the way they reacted, they didn't know if they'd ever see Paul Macbeth or me or Ricky or any of those guys ever again.
Mhm.
Uh, who's to say we'll come back and play? Who's to say that tournament will happen again? So that just to stay there, I signed as much as I could for probably 2 hours afterwards, and so many interviews and just afterwards, coming home, it was a hectic for a few
Mhm.
weeks, and I did so many podcasts and stuff, and it was a moment I relished as long as I could, and I still am really. I mean, it's still fresh there, and still have some people congratulating me here and there that I haven't seen in a while, and it's a crazy feeling. It's
Well,
just stuff, man.
now you're relaxing in West Virginia for the off season. You're doing some guitar collecting, some guitar trading. You're quite the musician and guitar aficionado. Looking forward to some Corey Ellis guitar videos on social media. I think the whole disc golf world wants to see you shred some guitar. But what's next for you in disc golf right now?
Well, I'm trying to work out a uh, a big trip out of the country for me and Molly. I'll make more of an announcement when I have more info on what's going on with it. So be on the lookout for that, and just enjoying my time home and not being on the road. So, uh, I played a couple of small A tiers just to go back and remember, why I do this, for the fun of it,
Mhm.
because sometimes you play week in and week out and it becomes work, man. You do anything enough, it becomes a job, and you kind of lose the fun aspect of it a little
Mhm.
bit. And yeah, I just trying to enjoy myself while I'm home. We just got a new puppy. We're training him, and that's mainly Molly. Let her do the training because I don't want to mess anything up.
You'll play the disc golf. I think you've done a pretty good job doing the disc golf. And Corey, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your time, and thanks for reliving that incredible moment with me. I mean, I still remember being right behind you the entire final round, and a couple times we did get to talk about whether it was disc selection or just decision making, and I felt the intensity from you and everybody, on that card. What a moment. And with that, we're going to close things out here for the winner's circle. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next time for more disc golf action.
Thanks, Brian.